She was an unwanted child, scarred by abuse, handed over to Mother Teresa's home at just 4 years old. Adopted almost immediately into a new life in Australia, she grew up typical Aussie style on a three-meat and veg diet, watching football on TV with an older sister Nelu, also adopted from Sri Lanka. Dilani Fahey, touch football coach for Sri Lanka, assistant principal at Centennial Park School, Sydney, and mum and stepmom to a 10, 12, and 13-year-old, has returned to the land of her birth 35 years later, seeking answers to her forgotten childhood. She's on Kaleidoscope Live Dialogues today. How much progress have you made in finding your early roots?
It's been an adventure. It's been a roller coaster ride of every emotion you could probably think of. But I think going into this and coming back to Sri Lanka for the first time in 35 years, I very much had the thought process of whatever I find will be enough, but I'm not really looking for closure. And I still don't feel like I've got closure. So in terms of how much have I found, the information that we were given, there hasn't been too much more. Who I am as a person is more aligned to my own story. So when we met the sisters, part of me, we'll go into that later, was just very much thinking, I don't know how much of this is real.
So you still carry those early physical scars of abuse. How have those early wounds actually shaped the way you look at yourself today?
It's not something that I've really think about. It's the scars on my body like I have when I gave birth, so my beautiful birthmarks. They're a part of who I am, but in some way they are a reflection of how far I've come without really letting that define me as that person. I could be really sad and I could be um, go into that Paul woe is me victim, but as I said, I have no emotional attachment, so I can't really be sad for something that I do get sad when I'm going through my roller coaster of emotions and I go back and I think, how could someone do that to such a little girl?
You met Sister Aroha, who looked after you at Mother Teresa's home. What do you know or feel about the time you spent in Mother Teresa's home before adoption?
I've always had this image of these iron gates, and she actually had a picture in that she showed us that she drew, and I took a photo of it, and I was like, I know those gates. I've seen them before, and I'm having a few of those small aha, I've been here, I've tasted this, I know these type of moments. But meeting Mother Teresa, like we walked in and there was no profound, oh my gosh, this is, where I was. It was, oh, okay, so this is a part of what shapes me, who I am. But it was just really beautiful and I was very thankful. And that's one of the first things I said. It was thank you so much for doing all that you could in order to get me into a beautiful, safe home. And she told of these really charming stories, but in the back of my mind, I was like, that's not me.
When you did meet up with your adopted parents, what was your behavior like with them?
I was just pushing them away because I was expecting them not to be there. I was expecting just to be alone. Like I'm very independent. I was vice captain of my high school. I was super sporty. I went to university. I love my parents. I know that they did the best job that they could do. And I think if anyone was considering adopting anyone from any country, understand what trauma is, understand behaviors, there's lots of supports out there, lots of research to understand the child because you will see these externalizing behaviors, but if you can understand what they actually means, then you can create that really supportive, structured boundary relationship that they're just yearning for.
You're four when you were adopted. What do you remember of your early days in Australia?
My mother, she shares this story that the first time, I think it was probably 3 months after being in Australia, I just said no to food. And because I was always like, more, more. And, that obviously goes back to not knowing where my next food source will come from when I was in Sri Lanka. She said I had a really funny aversion to toilet paper. I'd never seen it before. But I remember, and my parents will tell this story, like seeing my sister, and she was probably one of the first people that I saw coming. And she will say that I just broke a whole lot of Tamil. And she's like, Mom, what is she saying? So like, I've got no idea. But I learned English very quickly, thank you to my mum and dad. But yeah, I think I was so lucky. I was so fortunate to grow up in where I grew up and what the opportunities I had in my sports, and which has led me to why I'm really here back in Sri Lanka.
With absolutely no recollection of what Sri Lanka was about, how did you navigate those questions of identity and origin?
I grew up in a small seaside town called Ulladulla. And Ulladulla back then, there were not a lot of black kids. So people knew who myself and my sister were. And look, I was very fortunate. That's probably twice I faced racism, um, or maybe three times. But I remember, and a part of this obviously has a lot to do with my history and the resilience, and me knowing, somehow knowing that it's never about me. But I remember their comments, and my first thought process after these comments wasn't, "You shouldn't be saying that, that's not nice." It's like, "Well, if you're gonna say that, I don't wanna be a part of it." And I didn't get mad, I didn't get angry. I just felt sorry. I just felt sorry for their ignorance. If I was back in Sri Lanka, my options were I would be diseased, married, or possibly dead. And so I've always just had that in the back of my mind going, take any opportunity, use this, you know, you got out, you were lucky.
What emotions surfaced when you actually decided to come to Sri Lanka and look for answers?
For years, I've been saying, "Oh, yeah, I'll get to Sri Lanka. Oh, yes, I'll do this." I think having a beautiful partner in Rupert, he's really supported and encouraged, and even our beautiful children that between us, we've got three, they were very much encouraging of this journey. And when I finally decided to do it, I was like, should I share it? And so I created an Instagram page, and the love and the following, and even on my that goes from Instagram to Facebook, just the beautiful messages of support. I It's one of those things that I'm like, everyone's got a story to tell. Mine's just a little different. But once I started putting everything and piecing it together, it's like, oh, actually, it is pretty spectacular. I was really scared. I was really nervous. But again, stubborn, stoic me was just like, whatever happens, happens. Deep down, you're probably not going to find anything, and that's okay.
So, what can other adoptees or survivors of childhood trauma learn from your experiences?
I think with a lot of these adoptees and trauma victims is that it's one, it's not your fault, but two, you have control on how you then live your life. I think, it's understanding yourself as a person. And it takes a lot of work. Like, I'm in therapy, and I'm proud to say I'm in therapy because I have a trauma response, of, of being a people pleaser where I'll just go, yes, I don't want to do anything to get in trouble. And it took me a long time to understand that that's not typical. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to stand up for what you believe in, which I do now, definitely. But I think for anyone that has been through or is going through, is just really have a strong support network. You're not alone, and don't let your history define what you can do.
So, if you could share one message of hope with children who feel unwanted or abandoned for that matter, what would it be?
Sometimes you are unfortunately you're reared into these environments that are not best for you. And it's really hard when, you're a child and you want your mother or your father's love, and they just can't give it to you. But if you are then put into another environment where you are getting that, that's amazing. But I just think that for anyone, you were wanted, it's not your fault, and you're very much loved.
Every week on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, Kaleidoscope lights up your feed with stories that matter. Follow, subscribe, and stay connected.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Silico Life.